Sorry, 1 second. Just have to change something here.
Thank you. Appreciate all your thoughts. Are you?
Sorry about that. So we're talking about the Tzion Kvaros, and that's on, what top is that on? Hamid base. About 10 lines from the bottom. The list we spoke about is that marking a kever to know where the tumah is, and it said you only do a Tzion on Mokum Suffolk, not on a Mokum Vadai, and also only in a place which is Matami Ba'oel. And that the Gemara said that a Sadash Nechmash Ba'kever, there's no reason to be Mitzayin. If there was a field where there was plowed over, there was a grave and plowed over, so the whole field becomes a Suffolk Tumah, but only as far as Maga contact. You're not allowed to walk over there. Kohen wouldn't be allowed to walk over there unless he checks it out. But there's no Tumas Ohel, and therefore the Gemara says there's no reason to be Mitzayin. And that's the Gemara's kasha now. Is that true? That does not have to be marked. The Gemara is going to be a brisa that seems to imply that a field that was plowed over, a grave that was plowed over, also has to be marked. But Tanya, Matzah Sada Mitzuyanes, he found a marked field that seems to say that it's Tamei. Then you do Abba Mativa, doesn't know what kind of field it is. Why is it marked off? Yesh Ba'ilanos Biadua Shenechosh Bakever, in Ba'ilanos Biadua She'avad Bakever. That the choices are, it seems, the simple reading seems that the two possibilities of a marked field would either be that there was a grave that was lost in it, you don't know where it is, or that it was plowed over. It says both possibilities. The Brisa says there's a way to determine what kind of field it is. If it has trees in it, then it was a field that was plowed. The grave was plowed over. If there are no trees, then it was not plowed, and there's a lost grave over there. We'll get to that in a minute to see why the trees show that. But regardless, it says in the Brisa that it's possible that this field which is marked is either a field which the grave was lost in it or that it was plowed. And you said a second ago that the field which is plowed, well, the grave was plowed over. There's no reason to be Messiah in the first place. That's the kasha. The Gemara is going to continue with the rest of the Brisa, two more lines, but the kasha is over already. That it says here that it's possible that this southern Mitsuyanas was a Nechmash Bakever. And before he said that a Nechmash Bakever, you're not supposed to be Messiah in the first place. The Brisa ends off, the Yehuda does not rely on the fact that it was plowed over to assume that it was only plowed field and it wasn't a lost kever inside there, because he says that's not enough of a proof. You have to have somebody that could testify that it was a field which was plowed grave and not a lost grave, because not everybody knows about it. So it seems that you have to ask somebody that should know, responsible to know, ask a Zokan or a Talmud. Anyway, the Brisa says in the beginning that it's possible that this field which is marked is a Nechmash Bakever. And you said that a Sadash Nechmash Bakever doesn't have to be plowed, doesn't have to be marked in the first place. Amra Papa, Kitanya B'Sadash Ava Bakever, Tetzainua, Yesh Ba'ilanos Biaduash Nechmash Bakever, Ein Ba'ilanos Biaduash Avad Bakever. So Papa answers that really we're right, that a Sadash Nechmash Bakever, it was only a plowed grave. You're not mitzayin it. You don't mark it at all because there's no tumas oel and there's no reason to be mitzayin in the first place. The case over here was that you found a tzion. Surely it was because it was avad bakever. Surely the reason why there's a marker over there is only because it was a lost grave and not a plowed grave. But the diyon of the brisa is that even though there was a grave that was lost inside this field, but the question was that possible it was plowed over after it was lost. Means that there was a field that we don't know, as big as the field is, we don't know how big, we don't know where the grave is, but there's a full grave someplace. So that's a serious problem. But then it's possible that the whole field was plowed over, and even wherever the grave is, it was plowed over. Not only does that make the place that the scattered bones are the rest of the field, but even the place where the grave is, also it loses the intensity of being a full grave because it was plowed over, and it's only going to be scattered bones all over the place. So the Charash Bakever doesn't mean that it was originally Sadash Nechmash Bakever. No, originally it was Avad Bakever. But the fact that there are trees shows that they had to have been plowed subsequently, and therefore it loses the intensity of a sada shavad b'kever, it only becomes a sada shenechesh b'kever, and that's what the brisa means. But we're still holding on to our original halacha that if it only was a sada shenechesh b'kever that was plowed over, there's no reason to be beside in the first place because there's no tumas ohel, and that stays the way it is. The rest of the Gemara now asks questions on. We finished the kasha and there. It's already. We're good with that. But now the Gemara, one line up, is trying to figure out how do the trees solve the problem of having a grave over there. It says that if there are trees, even though there was a grave, but the fact that you had to plow the field for the trees, so the grave got plowed up also already. But the Gemara says maybe the trees are not right next to the grave, even though you plowed the place of the trees. Maybe the grave didn't get plowed over. Even maybe the trees are inside and the grave is outside. It means even though the place of the trees was plowed around, but maybe the grave is past that. Maybe it's outside. Maybe it's outside the perimeter of the trees. The Gemara answer is, you're right. Let's talk about a case where there is nothing outside the area of the trees. Ula said something else, that the case is that the trees are on the border of the field, and that's the case we're talking about over here also, that the trees are on the border. There is nothing else outside. Outside is the very Rishus Harabim. That's not a problem of the graves. No one puts a grave in Rishus Harabim. But if you're right, that if the trees would be inside the field someplace, then we don't yet know where the grave is. If the grave is also going to be next to the trees which was plowed over. The Gemara is the kasha the other way. Even if the trees are on the outer border, maybe the grave is inside the trees. That if the trees are on the border of the field and it's not past the trees, maybe it's within the trees. So the more answers been Mesubach, and you're right. The only case that it says that the trees are a solution here is only if they're all mingled, that all over the place, distributed, that the trees are distributed amongst the field. So then you have to plow up the whole field for each tree, and therefore wherever the grave is, it also got plowed over, and you're not choshesh anymore that there's a full grave. If anything, it's going to be a plowed over grave. The Gemara seems to say that I don't get the exact answer, but it seems that we're not choshesh that the marker is far away from the place of the tumah. Like it says, you're not supposed to put it too far away because then you're losing Eretz Yisrael for no reason. Unused space, you're going to make it tummy. It's not really tummy. So therefore, if the marker is by the trees, probably the tumah is nearby also, and therefore the grave is near the trees, and therefore it also was plowed over. So in short, the Brisa said that even though there was a field where there was a lost grave and it was a serious problem, that tumah sold someplace, but since eventually it was plowed over because the trees were there, so then it loses that intensity and it only becomes a sada shenechesh b'kever, but there's no tumas old anymore. At most, it's only going to be a chash that the bones were scattered around. And with that, we had an eitz already. It could be menapech. You go on all four and you blow. If you want to be able to see where the tumah is, and if it was trampled, so then there's also no problem. It loses the chumrah of a sada she'avad b'kever, and it became a sada shenechesh b'kever. On the fourth line, the Brisa continued. It says he says he doesn't rely on the fact that there are trees. You have to ask a zaken or a talmud because they would know. Not everybody else knows that. They're the ones to ask if they knew that it was plowed over. Since it says here about asking the zaken or the talmud, so he says when you have a talmud chacham in the city, so everything in the city is his responsibility. He's supposed to know everything. The talmud chacham is supposed to find out. Of course, I don't think he has to know everything, but it talks here about the issues of the city, halachic issues. He's supposed to be updated about what's happening with the city, with the halachas of the city, and therefore, if there's a grave over there, he should know if it was plowed over or not. That's the end of that sugya. And
when they go to Europe and look for old covers and houses that used to belong to the community, the old people always come down and
the old. So there it says old people. Here it talks about Tamid Chachamim. Here the Gemara is saying that the Tamid Chachamim would know if it has something to do with halachic issues. The Gemara continues more halachas about. It means a young Talmud Chacham. It means even a young Talmud Chacham. Here it says Zaken or Talmud. Here it does say an older person or a Talmud. So the Talmud Chacham. Sometimes, yeah, but talking sometimes also can mean an older man. The Chaim Dover saying maybe here it means as an older man. Okay, I think that I also thought that it meant the Talmud Chacham. And the Talmud means a young Talmud Chacham, and that the Gemara says, even though Sof Rabbanan, it's his responsibility to know what's happening if there any halachic issues going on. The Gemara continues about halachas about being with sign kvaros. They're supposed to mark the graves. If you find one stone which is marked, a marked stone, the Gemara is going to say soon about Sid. You put white plaster on it. That's the siman that there's tumah. So tachtei tumah. That's a siman that the tumah is under the ground, under the stone. Rashi points out, shame his Rebbe, that even though the Gemara said earlier that he's supposed to make it a little further, not mamish on the tumah, because he might come onto the marker before he realizes this, so make it a little bit leeway. But that's only when it's flat on the ground, level with the ground. But if it's something elevated like a stone, so then people do realize before they come to it, and therefore it's not necessary to make it past the stone. He just put it in the place where the tumah is. So if you find a stone which is marked, so the tumah is assumed to be under the stone. Shtaim, how about if you found two stones that are marked? If there's sid only on the stones and only under the stones is tummy. If there's sid between the stones, then the place between the stones also is tummy. Besides under the stones, also between the stones. But the Gemara is surprised because the Brisa seems to say different. This was Rav Yehuda, but the Kash is a Brisa that says differently. Even if it was not plowed in between the stones. This Brisa says so far the same thing, that one stone that's marked, you assume the tumah is under the stone. But Shtayim, here it doesn't say that if there's no sid, it's tor. It says that you have only if it's been plowed. You see that the area between the two stones was plowed over, then you can assume that there's no tumah in between. But if not, it's tameh. But if you same to say that if there's no sid in between, it's tor. Here he says if there's no sid in between, there's not enough reason to say that it's tor, only if it's also been plowed. So that seems to be a brisa against Rav Yehuda. Below sid the. So the Gemara seems to answer that if you have sid only on the stones, only under the stones is tameh. If you want to mark that between the stones is also tameh, you have to put sid on the ground between the two stones also. What the Brisa means to say over here is that if the area between the two stones, you have some sid, but it's been plowed over, you see plowed over a sid. Not so. Then the question is, where did the sid come from? If you plowed and you have sid in between, so then we could assume that the sid came from the two stones on the sides, and when the plow was going through, so it peeled off the sid from the stones and it came to be on the ground between. But that doesn't really mean that the sid was there. Sid between is tohar. But if you didn't plow between and they sit on the floor, so that means that the sid came because they put it in between to show that it's tameh. The summary of the Gemara is that they only put the sid on the place where the tumah is. And if the two stones have sid only under the stones is tameh, if they want to show that the place between the stones is also tameh, they have to put sid on the floor also. And if you find sid on the floor between the two stones, it's tameh. But even that as a kula also. Even if you find sid on the floor between the two stones, but it's been plowed over, so you could assume that the sid didn't come originally. It wasn't put there. It wasn't put on the floor. It was put on the two stones. But when they plowed in between, so the plow knocked on the two stones and it peeled off the sid. And it came onto the floor in between, but that's not a simmer that there's really sit over there, and it's also tohar.
We should make your seal on the tumah should be marked a little bit, so people should.
So Rashi said as the name of his Rebbe that by stones is different because since it's elevated, so then people do notice it before they get there. It's only when it's flat on the floor on the same level, so then people don't notice it till they're standing on top of it. But therefore, you have to make the simmer a little bit wider, further away than the tumah itself. But by a stone that's elevated, that's Rashi over here. That's to point out to Rashi. Umipimoria zaken. This is Rashi 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth narrow line. Umipimoria zaken. He says that by the stones, you don't have to be marchik because it's elevated off the ground. So Rashi takes care of that problem. Okay, the Gemara continues. Amar Rabbi Asi. It talks about the border. You have a field and you have the marking that you made, the sid. So you put it on the border. And it talks about one border, two borders, three borders, four borders. So in short, the Bryce is going to say that you only have a siman that the whole field meant to be marked off if all four borders are marked with sid. That's the siman that the field within he only marked off the perimeter, and inside the whole field is tameh. But if he only did 1, 2, or 3 borders, he didn't mean to mark off the whole field. He only meant to mark off the place where that line, the line of that border, that's where the tumah is. The tumah is under that line. But if you marked off all four sides, then he meant to mark the field within the markers. That's what the Brisa says now, not the Brisa, Ravasi. Amr Ravasi, he had one border that's marked. That's only assuming that under that border is tamei. The rest of the field is Torah. And also 2 and 3, Shnaim, Heim Tameim, B'chol Asad Kula Torah, Shlosha, Heim Tameim, B'chol Asad Kula Torah, 1, 2, or 3 borders that are marked, only under the border is tamei, but the rest of the field is Torah. But Arba, if he marked off all 4 borders, then Hein Torin, B'chol Asad Kula Tamei. Then it's the opposite, that he didn't mean to mark under the border, he meant to mark the field. By enclosing the whole field with a sid, that's a way of showing that the field is like a sadash, abad bakever, like we said before, that there's a chash on the whole field, that there's tumah, and that's the case which is tumah, and under the border itself is tohar. Rashi says of Shad over here that I didn't get too well, that the reason why he made the border on the 4 borders is that the whole sadeh should be tameh, and making a marker on the only one border is not enough for the rest of the field, because you're not supposed to distance the marker from the place of the tumah. Rashi says that these words of the Brisa is coming to explain how come one border does not show that the whole field is tameh, because you're not supposed to distance the marking from the actual tumah. That makes too much. That should be considered tameh. So the mark has to be nearby. So 1, 2, or 3 only shows that the tumah is near that actual border. If you had all 4, so then it's assuming that the whole field is tameh. So Rashi says that this damamar is not going on the 4th; it's going on the 1, 2, and 3. When you have 1, 2, and 3, then the whole field is not tameh. Only when you have all 4 borders marked, enclosed, that's assuming that the field was meant to be marked as tameh.
But you also said under the lining, it's the whole.
Because he made it next to the tamah. I mean, put it this way. That's the way to. Why did he do that? As we said, maybe like Beleza said before, that you're supposed to make it a little bit further in order you should realize before you get to it. So that the place where they make the actual sign, when it's not an elevated stone, so then that place is not where the tumah is right next to it. And here that he made. So what are you supposed to do if you have a field which is a suffix tumah? You're supposed to outline all around it. So the place where we're actually making the marking, that's not the place which is tamah yet. It's not right on it. So here it's all in between. You have a field. No, simple. You have a field that you want to mark that's tameh. How do you do it? You put on the perimeter all around, not on the tumah itself, but right around it. That's where you put the marking.
Further out.
A little bit, a few inches away.
It's not
right, and the whole field, the whole field is tameh. We finished the issue of seeing kvaros, and the halacha, just in short, is that he's supposed to make sure that any place which is a suffix tumah, he's supposed to mark it. Nowadays, they mark any the vaday tumah also, because people are not going to know that it's tumah. I don't know what the vaday means. In those days, they knew where the tumah was without making a mark. Just again, the word is tziyun. The word for tziyun is the marking, and tzion is a different word.
What's the word tziyun l'der? Is that tzion or tzion?
Which word?
Tziyun l'der. Is it tziyun
l'der? Where do you find the word tzion l'der?
It's like to give you guide you on your way.
So it should be a marker. Probably the word is a marker. A marker. Also, the Mishnah Berurah is a shar tziyun. It's not shar tziyun. The Chorah it's shar tziyun. It's the place where he's making the tziyunim. He's giving the references to where. I think that's what I was told. I can't say for sure. All of Hashem sharei tziyon. We call the Mishkan Yaakov. That's called not tziyon. But I think that the Mishnah Berurah meant the tziyun. I'm not sure about that. Okay, it says further. It says in the Mishnah that also on Chol HaMoed, one of the things that is done, that's mutter to do, is to go out to inspect that no fields are growing climb. And we had that. We have a sugi again now that Bezdin sends out inspectors to make sure that no climb is growing to a mixture of 2 different kinds of seeds. The Gemara Sakasha V'Kalayim V'Cholish L'Moed Nafkinan V'Minu V'Echad V'Adam Mashpin Al Shkolim V'Al Kalayim. It goes on. This Mishnah. We had it. This is mentioned in Shkolim, the beginning of Masechah Shkolim. We had it also in Masechah Megillah. It says that on the first of Adar they announced that everyone should be in Shkolim. That has to come in by Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So they give a month time before. We also had maybe 15 days before the bankers, the money changers are supposed to go out. 14 days before V'Al Kalayim, and also you announced that everyone should tear out any climb if they have. They should go to their fields and see if there's any climb growing. On the 15th of Adar, that's the Mukafin that they read the Megillah on the 15th of Adar. It's Purim over there, Purim and Purim the Mukafin. Also on the 15th of Adar, they go out to take out the thorns clear the thorns from the roads and to fix the town square if it's muddy, and to measure all the mikvos to make sure there's 40 saw, and to do any kind of sarchi rabim, maybe to dig out, as we said, to dig out the kilkuli amayim, umetzayin esakvaros. Also, they mark the graves. The Yotzin ala climb. So all the Gemara is asking is on the last one, the Yotzin ala climb, that it says in our Mishnah, you go to check the climb on Chol HaMoed, and here it says it was done on the 15th of Adar, so it was done a month earlier. Chol HaMoed is Chol HaMoed Pesach, that's when things are growing, and here it says that you did it on the 15th of Adar already, so what are you going twice for? Rashi points out that the Gemara doesn't ask the rest of the Kash also. The rest of everything's fair about fixing the roads and the town square and the mikvos and Sarchi Rabim and the Kvaros. That the Gemara doesn't ask, you did it already a month ago. The Gemara only asks on climb. So Rashi says because the rest of the things they do get messed up again. It rains more, so even if they maybe more thorns grow, I'm not sure. That the Gemara the problem was that even though you fixed it up on the 15th of Adar, you have to do it again. That the Gemara doesn't talk about. But the Gemara is bothered that by the climb that you checked it already on the 15th of Adar. So why are you going again on Chol HaMoed Pesach? So the Gemara says two terutzim, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina, Chadama kan bebracha kan ba'afil, v'chadama kan bezroam kan b'yirak. There's two terutzim, and the point is to say that there are two stages that things grow. Some things grow a month later. So bachir and nafel means the earlier crop and the later crop. That even within the same crop, sometimes things grow earlier, some grow later. So on the test on 15th of Adar, you go to check, but there's reason to check again a month later because things might have grown afterwards. Also, as Ram and Yerokos, it seems Rashi says that the vegetables grow later than the seeds and the seeds do. The other kind is Roim. So even though you check for this Roim on the 15th of Adar, you have to check again on the Chol HaMoed Pesach if the vegetables are not growing Beklayim. That even all these manim, Rashi says both of them, the one about the 15th of Adar or the one about the Chol HaMoed is only the time if you don't see any buds growing. But if you see the buds, if it's early season and things are growing earlier, you're supposed to check it even before these times also. Why Chol HaMoed is a time to go out to check for climb? They couldn't find a different day. Why would we not there to go on Chol HaMoed? And it seems the kasha is because it's not that the people are going. I think out of shot that the rest of the things that the people use out as a community. So then it's simple why we go out on Chol HaMoed because that's when people are not working and they get together. The Kiddush Devei Shutfi, no one, everyone. They didn't have a municipality that did it. People themselves went out to fix the roads. They took out the shovels. They fixed the roads. So then the time to do it is Chol HaMoed, but no one's working. But here it seems that Bezdin anyway is gonna hire inspectors to go. So why do we do it on Chol HaMoed? Hire them during the weekday. Why do you have to let them do it on Chol HaMoed? Why do we go out on Chol HaMoed? Because we can get cheap labor. Since no one works on Chol HaMoed, so everyone is willing to work for a price, for a low price in its regular season. So then there's competition. Everyone is trying to work, and it's gonna be higher. It's gonna be higher price. How is it going to be that people do work, and in order to get somebody to work for you, it costs money. But on Chol HaMoed, that no one can work anyway, they're willing to work for a cheap price. So in order to get the cheap labor, we were not there to hire workers on Chol HaMoed to go inspect for the client.
Excuse me, wouldn't that be Mevazeh, the moed?
Is it called the bizoin for the moed? So
yeah, well, I thought we're not allowed to do things like go get a haircut and things like that. So all of a sudden now someone can get work because they'll charge less.
So it seems that there's something else, but this here it seems that that's a different heter if they're poor. But here the case is that Bezdin is going to get cheap labor. The Gemara is going to say in 2 lines that these are community funds. So in order to save the community funds, so we're allowed. So they will make that they're allowed to do this on Chol HaMoed. It's more like a communal thing. So just like Tzarchi Tzibur, you're allowed to do on Chol HaMoed. So also this is called a Tzarchi Tzibur that they could do it also during the weekday, but they'll save on the public funds. The Gemara is going to say that in 2 lines. I think that answers the question. From here, we could bring a proof that the money that we pay for these inspectors is from the public funds. Trumas Alishka was from the Shchamachsa shekel that everybody paid, and you're also allowed to use Sarchi here. It's also Sarchi Rabim is also mutter to use from the money of Trumas Alishka. And we pay these inspectors of client from the public funds. And therefore, we're interested in getting a reduction. We shouldn't pay so much. The E, just 2 more lines. If we're going to charge the people that we find Klein. Means when these inspectors go around, they find Klein, so they could really say that the people who were guilty and they have Klein growing, they're the ones who should pay for the service that we came to inspect because of them. But then we wouldn't be interested in getting them cheap labor. Why do we care? Whatever it costs, they should have to pay. The fact that we're out to get cheap labor must be that it's public funds. I don't understand why we use public money for this. It's these particular people's fault that they're growing Klein. So even though we're interested in getting rid of the Avera, but it's their fault. Why don't we charge them? The Gemara doesn't have a problem with that. The Gemara says, I'll bring you a proof that they use public funds for this. And therefore, we try to get the cheap price.
They have to check all the fields, even the compliant.
That's true. And the people, right, but I think that the ones who should pay are the ones who are guilty should pay for the whole inspection. Don't you think so? You want to say no?
We don't know. We don't know that they don't.
We don't know what.
We don't know that they don't demand.
The Gemara says the Gemara proves it, that we do know.
Oh.
We know that they don't get paid from the people who are guilty. We take public funds. So Rabbi Eliezer is suggesting that we're not going to charge them for the whole inspection. It was a big inspection. It's true, we did it for these people that are guilty, but we're not going to charge them for the whole inspection. Okay, if that's true, that's true. So even though it's their fault, but we're not going to charge them.
That they sometimes came up empty-handed.
I'm sorry. That would be nice.
What?
No, I was saying that maybe they went around checking and nobody was guilty. So then who's going to pay for it? So it's from the public funds.
Then it will be public money.
No, so it says, so Chaim David is answering that in that case, we'll use public money. But if there are people that are guilty, so then we should pay him.
I'll add to that.
And what if there's one guilty person? So Bless is going to say, but there's one guilty person, he's going to pay for the whole inspection. That's too much. Okay.
I have a different, something in between. It could be you charge each one, you give big knas. But you're not going to say they split the fund. They have to pay, let's say each one fund client pay $100.
But there's still much more to pay.
And whatever, you pay the workers from here.
And maybe we'll get some money from them
Some
extra.
more, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's not.
So it's similar to Rabbi Eliezer saying that we're not going to put the whole thing on them. Only maybe some chelik, how much they should pay, but not that the whole
We even
thing.
make money off them. Each one has to pay $100. There's a lot of people we make money, but the what do you call it? The price gets paid from.
Why? You're also going to say why? Why not just take all the money from them without making?
Because then you don't have to make a cheshbon by each guy.
Okay.
Each guy pays his $100.
Okay. Okay. The Meister Gemara is mashma that they don't pay. I think the Gemara doesn't say.
Need to pay the workers.
The
It's
Gemara-
like the
The
mashkiach
Gemara says
of a
the Gemara says that you pay from the Chumas Lishka and you don't pay from them. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it sounds like something put into the Gemara that we will take something from them, but not all of it.
No,
It doesn't sound like
they
it.
pay more. They pay each guy pays $100.
It could be,
Yeah,
but
the
I'm saying it seems to be an invention. The Gemara doesn't say anything like that. The Gemara
Because the
doesn't.
Gemara is dealing with who pays the workers. That's
Okay.
a Chumas Lishka. Could
Okay.
be each guy that gets caught has to pay $100 to Chumas
It could
Lishka.
be, but the one's going to continue to Amid Beis is going to say what the deterrent was, and it doesn't say that they have to pay a knas. So that's maybe not. Okay, the Gemara continues. Okay, that what does it say in short? That there's an inspection that goes out both on the 15th of Adar and also on Chol Moed to check if there's any Kalayim. And the reason we do it on Chol Moed is in order to get cheap labor because no one's working, so you can get workers for cheap. Okay, that's the Gemara. The Gemara continues. Vad Kama. This seems to be.
Just one comment, sometimes a municipality hires workers, not because they need the workers so much, but it causes the economy to be.
But they didn't do that. That they didn't do. That wasn't the Gemara. That wasn't the Trumas Lishka. They had what to do Trumas Lishka. There wasn't. They weren't. The Trumas Lishka's issue was not the municipality as much as like it's for Kabbanis and other kachim and also for Tzorchei Tzibur. But it doesn't seem that we're gonna manipulate the economy with that. But ad kama. So this seems to be a question about the Hilchos Kalayim. How much are you concerned that Kalayim is growing? It means you have a field, whatever it might be, vineyard, and you have some tvua growing or Kalay is growing. Different. How much of a proportion of Kalayim bothers us? That once it's a certain, very little that it does. It's like butter does make a difference. How much Kalayim bothers us? Ad kama. How much is a problem? Amar Rashmuel Yitzchak Kosa Sheshaninu Kol Sosh Yesh Ba Rova. So it says about a saw and a rova. Rova means a rova kav. There are 6 kav in the saw, and a rova means a quarter of a kav, so it comes out of 24th. Rashi makes the cheshbon as the 24th. And Taisus mentions that this halach was talking about before you plant it. If you have seeds and you had one type of seed got mixed up with another type of seed, so then if it's less than a 24th, it's bottle. You're allowed to plant it as it is. Taisa says that the shear that we're talking about is after it's planted already. You think things are growing, and he says it's the same shear. that less than the 24th. So even if you find things that are growing, all you have to do is be a ma'it. You have to minimize it that it should be less than the 24th. Once it's less than the 24th, then it's bottle. You don't have to be concerned with the climb. I think that's what it says. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's what the words say, that the share is going to be a 24th, and less than the 24th is not a problem. And even if it was more than the 24th, all you have to do is minimize it till it should be less than the 24th. You don't have to be makbid to get out everything, every last piece. As long as less than the 24th, it's not a problem. The Mars Akasha, but Tanya, it's kinu shum afkir kol asad kula. The Bryce is much more than that. The Bryce doesn't just say that they pull out the climb until it's less than the 24th. It says that they mafkir the whole field. That this is a very serious inspection. Everyone really prepares before the inspectors come on the 15th of Adar and the Cholamoid Pesach. Because if they find that there's climb, so the whole field becomes hefker, and everybody comes and takes away the field. So that's very serious. It doesn't just say you might. The more says lokasha kan kodem takana kan lachat takana. There were different stages of the takana of what to do about the climb. At one point, we just minimized it. We tore it out. But then later on is when they're mafka the whole field. And now it tells you the whole story. The Tanya, where we shown how you open mashlich lefnei be'amta. In the beginning, the original way was that the shluchei bezdin, these inspectors would come and they would find climb, they would uproot it, and they would throw it. They would throw it on the floor. And then the animals of the owners of these fields, the guilty party, they had animals that would eat up the climb that was uprooted. So they were happy. They had no problem. There was no deterrent. If the inspectors came, so they tore it out and the animals ate it. And the owners of the fields were happy for two reasons. One is that their field got weeded for free. They took out the different kind of min. And also the animals got fed, so they had no reason to be scared. So they tried to make a little bit more serious, that they didn't throw it in front of their animals, they threw it onto the public places that people could take it, but they lost out. They didn't have their animals fed from those things that grow in their field, but they still were happy. Even though they didn't have two benefits, that one benefit, that they got the service of their field becoming weeded for free, so they weren't deterred. So the peasant said, whoever we find climb by, he's going to lose his whole field. So then everybody made sure that there was no climb to be found. They took out the climb before the inspectors came.
If the climb is just ruining the fields, then that's only also that bond. It's probably
No, I don't think that it means that it's ruining the field. It means that they don't mind. Like, it also takes out one from the other, but is the thing that's growing is a beneficial thing. They could use it. Even all the money? It's called Nicholas. If it doesn't take it out, it's called Nicholas. You didn't know.
No, I don't. If you don't have time, he's saying they're being happy they took it out for them.
So it means that even a climb, okay, he's not going to have the climb, fine, but he doesn't lose anything. And even if he loses the climb, but okay, it's climb, it's asabana anyway, or asabana. But I think not all climb is asabana, but climb is asabana. But it means that they're fine. So the field they had some mixture growing over there, so they got rid of it, and now it's a pure field. They're happy about it. They don't. It's not. I don't think that they look at it that it wasn't only damaging. It's not like you're saying that they're not happy about it. It was not that they're not happy about it. It says the Gemara. I think the Mishnah talks about that. They say when I'll get there, I'll take it out. On the way, I'm there. So then that's not called nichola yet. But if he says when I come back another time, so then he's not. That's called that he's nichola already. He has to want to take it out as soon as he can. So
the fact that they declare it to hefker would be like a kanas, then is that correct?
Yeah, right. A big kanas. He loses his field. That's a mamish, a big kanas. That if he has some climb growing over there, he loses his field. So I think after that, there was no more guilty parties anymore. No, everybody made sure to take their climb before. That was going to become easy. There's nobody to pay.
Isn't it the fact that the Beis Din or that the community is paying for this? Wouldn't that be because they want it to be a deterrent for everyone?
No. So then I don't understand the way the opposite to be a deterrent.
Just like a police force, like you're not going to say that the police are going to be paid by the people who are guilty. Why not? Everybody wants the police in order that way when we're policed, we know that we want to keep the law. So everybody, it's good for them to have somebody to chip in so that everybody keeps the law and doesn't make kalayim.
I think that the deterrent, and people pay for the police force because they want to be protected themselves. They don't want the criminals to but here it's not a crime that's affecting other people. It's only their personal avera. We are interested people shouldn't do crime, but it's not a kind of avera that's being mazik other people. So why should they not have to pay for themselves? It isn't, the deterrent should be on the people that they have to pay. That'd be the biggest deterrent. That anybody, if the criminals would have to pay for the police force, that also would be a deterrent. If we'd be able to take the money from them, that nobody else has to pay, only the criminals have to pay. But that doesn't
So
happen.
then why don't we do it?
So I asked the question, and the answer that was suggested was that they can't. There's too much. That the one criminal is going to have to pay for the whole police force. Again, it's not going to work. And maybe if there are only a few guilty parties, there's too much to be able to make them pay for the whole inspection. A suggestion.
Okay.
But the Gemara doesn't say. The Gemara just proves that the fact is we don't make them pay for it. We pay for it. But at the end, it comes out that after the takana that they weren't deterred, so we made a big deterrent, and we said whoever we find climb, he's going to lose his field. So then I guess everybody jumped up and they made sure there's no climb. Next Mishnah.
And this, if they threw it in the intermediate station, threw it in onto the road of the drachim. So the chayra, it's also for anybody to eat.
I think that the Ismot, I mentioned Asabana, but I think only client cameras Asabana. I think that other client maybe is Mutabana. I don't recall. If it would be Mutabana, so then it would answer the question.
Right.
Only client cameras Asabana. I think so, but I can't say for sure.
And in terms of in terms of the ratio, when it said rova, it meant a rova in a saw, right? That
Right.
amount in the saw, and that's how you got to 124.
Right, because a rova means a rova kav. There are 6 kav in the saw, and this is a quarter of a kav. A quarter of a kav to a saw, which is a 24. Here's Rashi.
Yeah, I see the rova. Hakav achad me 24 saw.
No, it goes together. Rova kav. You have to be the one. Rova kav. Echad michav daled b'saw. A quarter of a kav is 1/24 because there are 6 kav in the saw. So a quarter of a kav is the 24th of a saw.
Thank you.
Okay. Mishnah continues. More about
maybe 6.
no 1 to 24. 6 kav in the saw
6 cabinets.
and a quarter of a kav. So that's times 4. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer. So this Mishnah we had quoted in Beis Amar Aleph. Over there it spoke about watering also. Over there it said that the only amount of water if it's a hefsid, like Beis HaShlachin, but a Beis HaBaal that's not considered a hefsid, so then you're not allowed to water it. The Gemara is looking for somebody that holds like that, then it found Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, but the Gemara is looking for more, that it has to also be not without a tircha, that we didn't find, but we had mentioned in this mission before already. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, Moshles Hamayim Me'ilan Ilan, Uvavash Aliyashkes Kol HaSadeh, that you're allowed to draw water from one tree to another tree. You have a field, you have water under one tree, whatever the case was be, that one tree had a lot of water, and you can make some kind of a canal, a ditch that should groove, that should draw the water to the next tree, that you're allowed to do, but you wouldn't be allowed to water the whole field. Rashi says that the rest of the field is a Beis HaBaal, and it doesn't need the water so much. It's only considered a revach, not a hefsid, and therefore you're only allowed to do what you need. Each tree needs the water. That's a hefsid that you're allowed to do, but you're not allowed to do what's considered only harvacha. And another case of Elazar ben Yaakov says, seeds that were not watered before the moed, you're not allowed to do it on the moed. I think the point is that when they germinate, once they get watered a little bit and they germinate, so then if you stop watering them, they're going to die. But if they were not germinated at all yet, so then there's no problem to wait until after the moed. So if the seeds did not drink and you not get watered before the moed, then you're not allowed to. Only if they were watered before, so then it's going to be hefsid, and then you're allowed to. So let's say Ben Yaakov holds that you only want the watering for hefsid. The Chacham permit both. So Rashi knows both means the Reisha and the Sefer. That in the Reisha also, like Rav Meir, before we had in that Beis Amar Aleph, that he permits even a state Beis HaBaal, and also the second case, even if it's Lo Shasu, it's not considered a hefsid, it's only a revach, also is permissible. That's what Rashi learns, that Bazeh Bazeh means the Reisha and the Sefer. There is another possibility to learn Bazeh Bazeh is only going on the Sefer, and it's saying that even if they were not watered before the moed, these seeds, also you'd be allowed to water it during the moed, then it's not going back on the reish at all. The words might mean that. We'll see in a second that the Brisa uses the words Matir and Bazeh Bazeh is going on the Zroim, both if they were watered before the moed or on the moed. But Rashi says that Matir Bazeh Bazeh is going on the reish and the Sefer, and it goes according to Rav Meir, who says that you're allowed to water on Kol HaMoed, even if it's not a hefsid, it's just for harvacha. I'm going to say a pshat that's a little different than Rashi, but I think that it's pretty simple, and I think that the Gemara brings down that the Torah and the Nebuk Yosef say this pshat, so it's a bit simpler. Rav Yudah, if it's a moist field, the word metunenes means moist. If it's a moist field, it's permissible. So I think the simple pshat like that the Gemara brings down, that it's going on the case of this rum. It's going on the case of the seeds that it said that according to Elazar ben Yaakov, he says that it's if they were not watered before the moed, so there's no hefsid, only if it was watered before. So he says, but even if it was not watered, but it's a moist field, the field itself is a moist field, so it's also like watered. I guess the point would be that it also gets germinated and it's also going to be hefsid. So even Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov would agree that it's mutter if it's a moist field. Simple pshat. Tani na yachi kishamu aser lashkosim b'moed lama ela b'zorim shelashasu l'v'tei moed aval zorim sheshasu l'v'tei moed mutter lashkosim b'moed. Word for word about Mishnah, more or less, that when it says that it's also to water during Chol HaMoed is only if they were not watered before the Chol HaMoed. But if it was watered before Chol HaMoed, it's mutter. That's Mishnah Mishnah. And now it says it's mutter. It seems Pasha is going on the case of this Rom Shelo Shasu Lifnei Moed, even if they were not watered, but if the field is a moist field, so it's just the same. And therefore, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov also would be matter. Ve'ein mashkin, what's the aleph over here? Ve'ein mashkin, stay. I think the Gemara changes it to marbitzin. Ve'ein mashkin stay grid, b'moed, v'chacham matir and bazeh v'zeh. Stay grid means a dry field. Opposite of mutunenes is a grid is a dry field. You're not allowed to water a dry field. As I just said, that according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov was only mutter if there's a chash hefsid, which means that the seeds were already watered before, or that it's a moist field. But if it's a dry field and it was not watered yet, so then it'd be usher. There's a guess. I think marbitzin will mean even a light shower of water. You're not allowed to do that either. That is mutter even if it was not watered and it's dry, still it's mutter. Because they with my time he seems to be going on the Chachamim. He seems to be passing back to Chachamim that say that it's permissible. And the Gersa here is much better to be marbitzin. Ve'ein marbitzin, that's what he talks about. You gotta be marbitz. So Rashi and Taisva seem to say that the word marbitz means not a full watering, but like some kind of a showering, some kind of a light watering. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says you're not allowed to give a light rain, and the Chachamim say that you may, and that will come out maybe not like a mayor in the Mishnah that's not to even stay based on Baal for Revach. Only here that you're allowed to do a light kind of a rain, of a watering. So Ravina says from here we see that a tabitza. Rashi says that tabitza means a garden. I don't know what the implications of saying a garden is, but he says that you're allowed to give it a light watering, even though you're not allowed to water it mamish, but you are allowed to give a light watering. And what's the proof? Because steak with my time with after mashvil charpa. The reason why it's permissible, according to Rabbanan, the Chacham say that you're allowed to be marbis. Why is it mutter? Because charfa becomes afla. Charfa means a late crop, and afla means earlier. That it does have some benefit that it makes it grow earlier, and that's enough reason why you should the Chacham permit to do it on Chol HaMoed. Hachanami. After mashvil charfa. So also this garden over here, the tabitza, you're allowed to be marbutze, tabutze, you're allowed to water it lightly because it's going to benefit that it's going to grow earlier. That's enough reason also that it should be mutter and Chol HaMoed. Tanu Rabbanan. Here it says marbitzen, and the Gemara gives an ein marbitzen. So we'll just read it and see what we come up with. Marbitzen stay love in the shvius have a low b'moed. But Tanya marbitzen bein b'moed bein b'shvius. Marbitzen means I don't know a word in English, but it means like a light showering, not a mamish a full watering, but a light watering. That's what Rashi seems to say. Just point out Rashi. Where's Rashi? Letarbutze, lazalef ala maya, to sprinkle water on it. That's what he seems to say. That's what he seems to say. Texas talks about it also that it's not the regular watering; it's something like a light rain, a light watering. So here the Gersa it talks about Shemitah and Moed. Again, once again, it puts together the issue of Shemitah and the Chol HaMoed. So in the Gersa it says that Shemitah is mutter. You're allowed to make this. We'll see in a second. It's going to say soon also about Shemitah that maybe there's more of a heter of a light watering, not a full watering. So we'll leave it in a second. Here in our Gersa says that it's permissible on Shemitah. And we'll see soon when is it permissible on Shemitah. You're not allowed to. But Tanya, Sarah says that it is permissible on the Moed. And according to our Gersa, the contradiction is only on the Moed. There's no contradiction in Shvius. Both the first Bryce and the second Bryce, both of them say that's mutter on Shemitah, as we'll see in a minute. But the Gersa stira is on Moed. The first Bryce says you're not allowed to. Second Bryce says you are allowed to. Because if it's nice, if you change the Gersa here by Aleph, the machlokes is going to be marbitzin. That was the question. Is there special cooler to be able to make a light rain, a light watering? And that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said not, and the Chacham said yes, it is mutter. So now we're saying there's a machlokes about it, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov would be the one that says that it's asa, and Rabbanan said that it's mutter, and it could be we're going to pass it like the Rabbanan. Tanya Idach, Marbitzin. Now we go to Shvius, and so far we'll say there's no stira because the Brisa before and our gears, everyone said that it's mutter. Both the first Brisa and second Brisa says on Shemitah you are allowed to make this light watering. Tanya Idach, Marbitzin stay love and bear of Shvius, Kadei Shetsu Yerokas B'Shvius. Below Ode, Erlish Marbitzin stay love and B'Shvius, Kadei Shetsu Yerokas L'Motzai Shvius. So this Brisa seems to be a clause of to explain a little bit what we just said that on Shemitah it's mutter to make this light watering. And it says there's only in a certain cases, means you're allowed to do it before Shemitah in order to make that during Shemitah in the 6th year. You're allowed to do it in order that in the 7th year it should grow better. And you can do it on the 7th year in order that it should grow on the 8th year. But Rashi says, but to do it in the 7th year for the 7th year, we're not going to permit it. So even though we said before, Bar Bitzin, you are allowed to make this light rain, that's only provided that it's not during Shemitah, for Shemitah. It could be before Shemitah, for Shemitah. It could be on Shemitah for after Shemitah. But if it's going to be on Shemitah for Shemitah, then it wouldn't be this heter making this light rain. If that's good, we go on to the next Mishnah, more about Hilchos Cholamoid. Right, that the things that are growing, I guess, is going to be towards the end of Shemitah. So the watering that you're going to do is going to benefit things that are going to grow after Shemitah. That's what Rashi seems to say. It has to be either before Shemitah or for Shemitah, or on Shemitah for after Shemitah. But you can't do it on Shemitah or for Shemitah, for the Shemitah food.
Otherwise, you'll have hefsid.
It doesn't seem like it's hefsid over here. There seems to be a new heter about a light watering. I'm just saying what it seems. I don't have clarity on this Gemara. It seems that there's a special heter of Tarbitz, and Taisa talks about it, that there's more reason to be matir because it's Hashkah Porta. Hashkah Porta. Rashi says, Pirush B'Kuntris, Hashkah Porta.
So how come on Shemitah itself it doesn't really do too much?
On Shemitah it's only going to be mutter if it's hefsid. That's what we had in the Mishnah at the beginning, right. That by hefsid you're allowed to do it. And here it's saying a new heter that there's improvement, and that's not enough reason to be matter to water with mamish, but only if it's light watering, and another condition that it should be not on Shemitah for Shemitah. That's what I got out of this Gemara, but I can't say that I have clarity. The next Mishnah, Sadin is Ishas Vesach Borim. There's again Hilchos Cholamoid, and also Shemitah comes in again. Sadin is Ishas Vesach Borim, Mistei Ilan or Mistei Lavan Kedarko b'moed b'Shvius. So you're allowed to trap Ishas and Achborim. Achborim, you know, is mice. So the mice are destructive, and you're allowed to trap them. You're allowed to catch them that they shouldn't destroy. And also Ishus. Ishus is a mole. The Gemara is going to say that he's a mole, M-O-L-E. It's also, that's the kind of rodent that tunnels under the ground, and also it's destructive, and you're allowed to trap them, kill them, in order that they shouldn't be destructive to the fields. And the Mishnah says, according to the Tanakama, both stay ilan and a stay lavan, no difference if it's a tree field or if it's a wheat field. Kedarko, no shinoi necessary. You can do it the regular way, whatever mechanism you use in order to trap them, you're allowed to do it on Cholamoid and also on Shemitah. Shemitah is a big chiddush to me. What's the problem with Shemitah? Was any problem to trap things on Shemitah? But Rashi says it is a chiddush because it might be considered metaken asada. After the metaken asada, you might think that in some way it's considered improving the land. The fact that you get rid of the rodents, that's a chiddush to me. But that's considered. But it is mutter. But it's a chiddush to me that it's even a chiddush. I'm surprised that it's even a chiddush. But it says that it's a chiddush. That you're allowed to do it, and on moed also.
Independent of the field, really.
Right. That's why. That's because there are rodents coming in. So here it says you're allowed to do it, but it's considered a chiddush that you're allowed to. And here the Tanakama says that you can do it kedarko, you can do it without any shinoi, no difference if it's a tree field or a wheat field. It seems that it's not mazik so much a wheat field. I don't know the facts. That's what it seems over here. That these mice and moles, they don't destroy their whatever they do is not so damaging to a wheat field as much as to a tree field. So therefore, the trees you're allowed to do it without a shinoi. But for the wheat field, only allowed to do it with a shinoi. However way there is to trap these rodents is only mutter with a shinoi. I think tomorrow's going to say more about how to trap them. Another thing the Mishnah says, if there's a pirza, a breach in the fence, so on the cholamoid you're allowed to be makrin. Makrin means that it's not going to be the regular. You're allowed to fence it in. You're allowed to fence in whatever got breached, but it seems like you're not allowed to fix it and build the walls down. But b'shvius bonu kedarko, Rashi says bonu kedarko even for the first time. Metchila afagav the mercy David twist laperi. Excuse me. It might look like the fact that you're building a wall around the field looks like you're watching the food that is growing inside the produce is growing inside the field. You got to do it during Shemitah. That's not a problem. Even with Chila, but during Cholamoid, it's only what if it's a davar aved. So if the pirza happened on Shemitah, so then you'd be allowed to fence it in. It sounds a little bit that makron is not a regular way of building the wall either. It's just like a temporary protection that the field shouldn't get damaged from the breach. People, kanopim shouldn't come in, animals shouldn't come in. So you're allowed to do that on Chol Hamoed. It shouldn't be davar aved, but on Shemitah you're allowed to build. Rashi says even lachatchila, no problem. There's no, even no periods, or maybe even a regular wall. There's no limitation to building on Shemitah. My ishus, what is this rodent called the ishus? It's a creature that doesn't have eyes. They say that's a mole. I think that the mole, they say maybe it does have eyes, but it's covered with a layer of skin, or it sees very little, and that's what they call a mole. M-O-L-E. Where do you see a pasuk talks about it, this rodent called the ishus? That's until in 58. We had it not so long ago, and we said that David over there is cursing out the enemies, and he says that they should dissolve and disintegrate like a snail. A shablul is a snail, like a snail that goes and dissolves. As he's going, he disintegrates. Nefel Eishes Bal Chozu Shemesh. So here the Eishes, some of Harshim in the pasuk learn that it means the miscarriage of a woman. Nefel Eishes, like he never saw the sun. It was a stillborn. But the Gemara learns that Eishes is not a woman. Eishes is this Ishus, which means a mole. He's like a mole that never saw the sun. And Rashi learns Nefel means they should fall. They should fall down like the mole that never saw the sun. But the other Mepharshim learned that Nefel means like a Nefel, a stillborn, and also like a mole. But anybody brings this pasuk to say that Ishus is a Eishes. That pasuk over there in Tehillim doesn't mean a woman. It means a mole, like this pasuk over here, this mission over here. Taner Rabbanan. Sudden as the Ishus v'asachbor mistay lavan or mistay ilan kedarko, same as our Mishnah, that you're allowed to trap, you're allowed to capture a mole and mice from a wheat field and from a tree field without a shinui. And our Mishnah said that some argue would say that you do need a shinui by yistay lavan. So same as our Mishnah. Umachrivin chore nemalim. You're also allowed to destroy anthills. The chor is a hole, the anthill that you have ants that are also damaging the field, so you're allowed to destroy it. And then it tells you how to destroy it. It could be telling you dominates how to destroy it, even in the weekday. Maybe it's telling you a way how to do it. Maybe this is called a shinui, I'm not sure, but it's going to tell you a way how to destroy the anthill without a lot of work. How do you do it? Bring earth from a different anthill and put it over here, and they're going to strangulate each other. They're going to kill each other. So Rashi says that the offer itself, you bring the earth that they're not familiar with, so they get crazy and they start killing each other. Rabbi Yochanan says a little different, that you bring the offer is another way of saying bring other ants. Bring ants from a different anthill, and they're going to have a war, and they're going to kill each other. So you don't have to bring any pesticides. It's very natural. You bring ants from a different anthill, they're going to have a civil war, and they're going to kill themselves out. Amrav Yemra Bashlemi Mishmei Dabaya Buddha Koi betray every Nara, Buddha like a Gishra, Buddha like a Gamla, Buddha like a Mitzra, Bad Kama, Ad Parsa. So he says that has to be that this other anthill is not in the same area. It's not in the same territory. That's why that's why they're enemies, or that's why the offer. As Rashi learns that it's strange to them. So it has to have a couple of conditions that it should be very far away. How much is that? That it should be on two sides of the river. So there's no communication between these two sides. That's when they're considered enemies, and or the earth is not good for them. Two sides of a river, and also that there's no communication, there's no transportation over the river. There's no bridge. Gamla Rashi says there's a smaller bridge. Mitzvah is even smaller. Maybe it's a ferry of some sort, or it's there's no way to get over the other side of the river. Then it's considered a different camp, and then that's the way to destroy the anthill. But if it's on the same side of the river, or there's transportation over the river, so then it's considered the same district. And the last thing the Gemara says is ad kama, ad parsa. How much? Till a parsa. Parsa is about 4 kilometers. Rashi Taisvus, they have two pshatim over here. Doesn't mean that it has to be not more than a parsa. Even, what does it mean, the two pshatim again? One is with the river, one is without a river. One says that even with the river, it's only, even if there's a river, it only has to be also a parsa away. It has to be 4 kilometers away plus a river. Some say that if it's 4 parsa away, even without a river, also it's too far away. You only have to have the river if it's less than 4 parsa. So that was l'chora. That was just side information. The Gemara is helping us out how to get rid of a natural way of getting rid of anthills. But I don't know if that's so halachic. The rest of the Mishnah talked about what you're allowed to do in order to kill the rodents, in order that it shouldn't be mazik and chol hamoed. So just to sum up what we had today, the sugis that we spoke about, We finished off the halacha about Tziyun Kvaros, and it came out that a stay Sadish Nechash Bakever, there's no reason to make it Tziyun because it's not Matami Ba'oil, only a Sadish Ava Bakever, and even that, if it was plowed over afterwards by the fact that you have trees, maybe that's also a proof that it was plowed over, and you don't have, and then it doesn't have that chumrah of a Sadish Ava Bakever anymore. Avida says don't rely on the Charisha, you have to have somebody testifying, a Talmud Chacham, he knows what's doing in the city, and he'll tell you if it was plowed over or not. The Gemara talks about that trees are raya to the being plowed over if it's close by, in a way that there's no chash that is far away from the tree, even though the tree was plowed, maybe the grave was not plowed over. The Gemara continued about how to mark with stones, and when you have a stone, Rashi says you don't have to make it further, the tziyun further than the tumah. You put it right over the stone, right, and over the tumah, because there's no chash that he's going to meet the marker before he realizes that it's there. And it talks about one stone, two stones. So only under the stone is tameh, between the stones is tohar. Only if there's sit in between, and even if there's sit in between, if it was plowed over, you could assume that the sit in between came from the stones themselves, and it was not meant to be there. But if there was no plowed in between, and you have sid on the floor, that means that the floor also was marked, that all the tumah has been in between there also. As far as the borders, 1, 2, or 3 borders is only a similar tumah near the border, not the rest of the field. In order to mark the whole field, you have to mark all 4 borders. That's a raya that the whole field was marked off as tameh. As far as climb goes, they do check. They send out inspectors on the 15th of Adar, but they check again, send out again on the 15th on the Chol Hamoed Pesach in order to check for the upfill or the Yerukos, things that grow later on, the later crop, or the vegetables that grow later. Unless the buds came out, so then you send out inspectors right away because it's already a problem, already growing early. Chol Hamoed, the reason why we do it is because we get cheap labor, because nobody's working. The money is paid from the Trumas Halishka, not from them. And since it's a community fund, so we try to get a cheaper price. How much you have to take out? So originally, you just minimize it to be less than a 24th in order that it shouldn't be climbing, but the people didn't get the third, and they were happy that they were getting their fields weeded for free. First, the animals also got benefit, and then even if it took away that, but they still had benefit of getting weeded the field. At the end, the best made a takana that whoever doesn't take out, if they find any climb, the whole field is afka, and that was a big deterrent. As far as Davar Ovid, so we had the machlokes if Dafka Davar Ovid, which the Mishnah beginning, Beis Hashlachan Dafka, and Rashi learns that our Mishnah is going according to Rav Meir, that the Chachamim argue and say even if it's only Arvacha, it's also mutter. We don't pass like that. Arvacha, even if it's only not a loss, just for more revach, it's also mutter. But we don't pass like that. We pass Dafka if it's a loss, if it's a hefsid. As far as Ram Shalosh Shasra, but Lezer ben Yaakov seems to say that only mutter if it's going to be a hefsid, that the seeds were already watered before, so then it germinated and it's going to be hefsid if you stop watering it. But if not, so then there's no hefsid, then it's aser. And it's maybe the Mishnah says, or the Gemara says that maybe you're allowed to make a tarbitza. Even if you're not allowed to do that, you still would be allowed to water it lightly. And that might be a machlokas. Maybe over there we do pass like the Rabbanan, that it's mutter to water it lightly, even if it's not a hefsid mamish. I'm not sure about the halach over there. The southern metunenes is the same. If it's a moist field, it's just as much as being watered, and then it'll be mutter even according to Lezer ben Yaakov. The last Gemara spoke something about Shemitah, and it seems that the Gemara says at the end that a light watering is mutter even if it's not a hefsid mamish, but only with the condition that it's either before Shemitah, or on Shemitah for after Shemitah. But on Shemitah for Shemitah would be us even as the light watering. And the last Mishnah about getting rid of the mazikim of the moles and the mice. So Tanakama says it's mutter without any shinui, both on moed and shvius. Chachamim say that on by a state lavan, it's only mutter with a shinui because it's not such a hezek. And the Gemara says that a mole, Ishus is a mole, means a pasuk in Tehillim, Nefaleshus Balchazu Shamesh, and also tells you in Eitz how to destroy the anthills by bringing earth or ants from a different anthill, and they'll kill each other. And only if it's far away, that there's a river in between, either with 4 parsa or less than 4 parsa, and that's the question how to learn that Gemara. And the end of the Mishnah spoke. We didn't do the Gemara yet, but the end of the Mishnah says that on Chol Hamoed, if something broke, a fence broke, you're allowed a fence to breach in, and Shemitah there's no problem with building, even though it looks like a little bit that you're protecting the field. It's not a problem on Shemitah. You're allowed to build a fence and a wall around the field on Shemitah. Yashikoach, everybody, and we'll be back in a minute or two to continue with Pirkei Avos. Yashikoach.
Thank you.
Yashikoach. Thank you. Just to mention that Emmanuel Legumsky is sitting shiva on his mother until Thursday. Until Thursday. So in his house, but I don't know. I don't know if he wants people to come. I don't know. Maybe that's better to call.
Said at the show yesterday.
Okay.
That's right.
Welcome, Menachem Oso, B'Sav Shabbat Tzvi Yerushalayim. We'll be back in a minute or two.
Excuse me, anybody who happens to be there, did we get to the Mishnah? I left the room.
We got till the top line of the next page.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you.